than the hair on the sides of his head. And that's really how it is. And this typically happens if you continue to get taper fades, that the hair on the top of the head will always be longer than the hair on the sides. But that's besides the point. Let's talk about his hair type. If you don't know anything about hair type, or you don't know your own hair type, make sure to click the link down below that says what is your hair type. Hair type is a clear indication of how a person might have got their dreadlocks. So in this case, we see that he has about a 4B hair type. 4B is a very tight curl pattern, which is very easy to lock up, and that's what we can see throughout this process of him actually locking up his hair. With his hair being a 4B, it's really interesting seeing him start out with the traditional route of dreadlocks. And anytime you hear me say like the traditional or the classic way, or even like a basic way, which is interesting because it's the way that I'm starting my dreadlocks, I'm talking about twisting with gel. With his hair type, he could have really started out with any method that he would like. So if you have a 4B hair type, or even like a 4A or a 4C, you can really start out with any method you would like to. I wouldn't recommend doing twist and rip just because that's a straight hair method, but really any other method is really easy to do with these hair types. But you see that he has the coils going, and that's really what's to be expected when starting twisting with gel with this hair type. And we see that he actually went up on his fade, so almost going into a high top fade. And a cool thing to see about Soulja Boy's dreadlocks is that after he started them initially, he allowed them to somewhat freeform. But with that being said, most likely what happened is that he just washed his hair afterwards, and this is the aftermath of him washing his hair, which this is completely normal, and this is one thing to expect when washing your hair after starting dreadlocks. And you just have to understand, when starting dreadlocks with twisting with gel, you have to constantly maintain it, especially during the beginning stages. This is completely different than if you were to do instant dreadlocks with the crochet hook, or interlocking the dreadlocks with the interlocking tool, which those are some of the methods that I teach over in the Dreadlocks Masterclass on how to instantly lock up your hair so that you don't have to worry about your hair unraveling after you wash it. So I do want to remind you, if you want to join the masterclass, click the link at the top of the description. So now we see him after somewhat of a fresh retwist, although you can't see his scalp, so this is probably a couple days after a retwist. And one thing to indicate that they are starter dreadlocks is that they have a really bright shine to them. And what happens after they develop and mature, they'll start to become more dull and less shiny. And that just lets you know that the hair has budded up and it's starting to lock up, which is a good thing. And this is a really cool stage of his dreadlocks because they're not really that long, not even all the way down to his eyebrows. And I personally really like this length. On my first set of dreadlocks, this was my favorite stage of my dreadlocks just because I liked the way they looked. Because some of the dreadlocks will stand up, when you retwist them, they look really good. And it looks really clean with the fade because your fade is visible even with having your hair down. But we can still see that he has a very bright shine to his dreadlocks, and that's to be expected, especially with the twisting with gel method. And I'm not saying that that's going to completely go away, but I'm saying that it will go down quite a bit once it matures. This is somewhat around the same time, but we do see his dreadlocks taking off. We start to see him doing 2-strand twists, which actually helps the locking process, and it also gives your dreadlocks a really cool look, whether you have them in or whether you undo them. Because when you take out 2-strand twists, it makes your dreadlocks curly. That's a little hack for you guys, but at the same time they look really good inside the 2-strand twist. It makes the dreadlocks appear thicker, and it makes your hair look a whole lot healthier as well. And now we see his dreadlocks a little more thick, not as maintained at the roots. I'm not sure if we're going to see him go kind of freeform, or if we're going to see him continue to do the completely maintained look. I'm thinking that he's going to continue maintaining his dreadlocks. We hardly ever see people start out with maintained dreadlocks. Besides Lil Wayne, I can't really think anybody else off the top of my head. Sway Lee was like that for a little bit, but then he maintained his hair. But at the same time, he started out with kind of a freeform style. Yeah, but other than that, you don't really see people start out with a super maintained look and then go into freeform, with the exception of Lil Wayne. But we still see him rocking the 2-strand twists, and this helps the hair lock up and mature. And his hair looks like it would be at full maturity, but it's actually not. And it does just take time. And that's the thing about twisting with gel, it takes longer than other methods. But I can say that